So we seem to be in the middle of an egg crisis that's quickly going to escalate to a chicken crisis, which is quickly going to escalate to other crises. Let's talk about that. Everybody seems to be in a mad uproar about the price of eggs. Now I get it. Okay, it costs more to feed them, it costs more for transportation, it costs more for housing, it costs more for water, electricity. All those costs are factored into raising eggs. It costs more for cartons, cleaning, all of it. So yeah, the price of eggs should rise, especially eggs that are raised on your local farm. They should have never been $2, $3 a dozen in the first place, but that's my own opinion, and I have my own view on that. Now, everybody's thinking, well, the price of eggs, $5, $6, $7, $8 a dozen, I'll just get me some chickens, and I will raise my own chickens and get my own eggs. Well, it came to my attention today that some of the hatcheries are having issues with orders. Because they can't fulfill them. There's too many orders for chickens, and now everybody's out of stuff, even the pre-order stuff. So what's that tell you? Honestly, it should tell you a couple things. The price of chicks has gone up. The availability of chicks, not so much. The other things it should tell you is probably a lot of people have finally decided to pull the trigger on getting their own little small flock. That's great. It does present its own problems. Some of the problems it presents are not all these people are going to be prepared to raise a flock. Some people are going to over-order. They're going to order 20 or 30 or 40 chickens when they really only need a half a dozen. Some people are going to order straight run, which means they're going to get roosters. And some people are going to order just chicks, which means there's going to be an overabundance of roosters. Or just hens, sorry. And there'll be an overabundance of roosters. It gets a lot deeper. It also kind of makes me wonder a little bit, who's taking care of them? Do they have the proper housing? What are you going to do in the winter? You know, you're going to have to wait 4 to 5 to 6 months before you get an egg. Are your chickens heat tolerant if you're in a very hot climate? Are your chickens cold tolerant? Do you have a place to put them when the weather goes bad? Do they have somewhere to go? Who's going to take care of them in the muddy times, and the snowy times, and the icy times, and the rainy times? It's just all things to think about. But there's going to be an overabundance of birds and eggs. People raising their own chickens, feeding them scraps the way it used to be. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. But what's going to happen is there's a big percentage of these people, you may be one of them, you may not be, who is going to find out chicken farming is not for them. And I didn't mention it, but what are you going to do with the manure? Can't leave them in one spot. You really can. It's not conducive to healthy chicken. Some people do and get away with it. It's just not something I believe in, and that's just me. But there's all sorts of expenses that goes along with it: bedding, water, electricity, building materials. Waterers break. I use different waterers in the winter than I do in the summer. So there's just a ton of things to think about. Where are you going to brood them? How are you going to brood them? How long are you going to brood them? Where are you going to put them when you go outside? What are you going to do for predator protection? That's not the premise of this video, but I'll probably make a video about that. The premise of this video is to get you thinking about what's going to happen to all these chickens that the people don't want, that they're not going to be able to keep, that they decide, you know, it was a great idea to get 10 chickens, but I only want 4. Or, geez, I had to order 25, so I got 25, and I've got 15 roosters. What am I going to do with them? So it's going to open up a market for swap meets and, online sales and things like that locally. There's going to be a lot of chickens out there for sale, I think, this summer and fall, especially this fall. And probably over the winter, you'll be able to get some. Winter farming is no fun. I don't care where you live in the winter, even if it's Florida. It's not fun. Here in Kentucky, it's all mud and ice and snow and mud and mud and mud and clay and mud, and it's fun. Cold, frozen waterers, frozen water lines, frozen hoses. All things to think about. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's things to think about. So anyway, this market opens up now for all these laying hens and roosters. And they could be any breed. They could be Easter eggers. They could be copper Morans. They could be, you name it, Leghorns, Dominiques. I mean, there's just a million different ones, a million different breeds. But yeah, and then you're going to get the people that get the mixed flocks, and then, true to the breed, they're just going to let them farmyard breed, which is fine. I mean, to build your own little crop of chickens. But, we're going to have an overabundance of local eggs too, which brings me to another point. It wasn't that long ago when eggs were $1.50, $1.99, $2.50, $3 in the store. Backyard farmers were still selling them for $2. Shouldn't have been, but they were. Or giving away to friends, etc., etc. Come probably August, there's going to be a lot of local eggs available all over the country. And these people are going to have to find an outlet for them, because some people are going to have too many. What do I do with all these extra eggs? Some people will water glass them, some people will freeze them, some people will bake with them, some people will give them away to friends and family, which goes back to degrading the market. When you start giving away products that people pay for, the market gets degraded. So the egg market's going to be interesting, and the chicken market's going to be seriously entertaining for the next year. So maybe we should talk about the elephant in the room. There's a thing called avian influenza, and it's real. It's out there. There's all sorts of parasites and things the birds can get, diseases, sicknesses. The government's really in on this avian influenza. Millions of birds were killed last year because of it. I fully believe that. If one in a flock gets it, they pretty much wipe the entire flock out. Happens to backyard flocks, happens to commercial flocks. Doesn't matter if you got 20 birds or 20,000. If they condemn the flock's going with avian influenza. Because if one gets it, they're all pretty much going to get it. And yeah, it's spread wild. It's really hard to keep wild birds out of your farm. Really hard. I don't care how much aviary netting you put up. It's really hard to keep them out. So, what if that disease takes off like, a certain C19 did, out of curiosity? What if it's prevalent in the majority of major flocks and running rampant in backyard flocks next year and into the following year? What do you suppose Big Brother's going to do about that? Well, I can tell you what they're all about. They're all about control. They're all about their economy, not your economy, not the economy we live in. They're about their economy and how that's structured and how that brings profits to the right places. It's not about you and me. It's not about our safety. It never has been. They brush it off as being like that. But if you investigate the FDA and everything else, all the three-letter agencies out there, the CIA's come out with a ton of stuff since the 50s. If you haven't read up on it, you probably should, just so you have an idea of what's been going on. And the horse shit that they pull off. But yeah, they would have an absolute field day. And I think it's they're weathering the storm because they know what's going to happen. They know what's going to happen. There's going to be an influx of backyard flocks, and they're going to be able to control it. They're going to be able to tell you what you can and cannot raise, whether your flock can stay, whether it has to be eliminated or culled, which is going to lead to a bunch of new regulations, a bunch of new rules, which all boils down to money. It's going to cost money to raise chickens. It's going to cost money to have them in your backyard. Mark my words on that. That is probably the driving force behind a lot of this. So I just finished chores on the old farm, and I'm down sitting by the fire just to warm up a little bit. And yeah, I'm not trying to spew some newfangled conspiracy theory or anything like that. It's not conspiracy. This is the breeding grounds for regulation, which leads to fees, which leads to laws, which leads to all sorts of things can stem from this, to the fact where only certain people are allowed to keep backyard chickens, only a certain number, you know, there's just a whole gamut of things that can come out of something like this. So yeah, just some food for thought. I see some things happening that they don't scare me. I mean, you know, you're always going to have people that play 100% by the rules and regulations, and those are the people that will, you know, succeed and see this thing through to the next chapter. But I see a lot of issues stemming out of what's going on right now with eggs, the lack of chicks. There's talk of certain foods, problems with certain foods. I don't necessarily buy into that 100%. There's a lot of factors why chickens stop laying eggs, and you got to look at every single one, not just feed. And you know, there's other things that change, like fluctuations in weather, the amount of water they get. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So yeah, but you know, it got me thinking a lot today about my backyard flock. And you know, I have some specialty breeds here, and I have some not specialty breeds here. And you know, I play by the rules. I do what I'm supposed to. Everything's done correctly. But you know, so everything gets to you the way it's supposed to. But it really got me thinking today about the chick shortage, and why the price of eggs are what they are. Maybe it's a stepping stone to get them to where they want them to be. When you start regulating that, one of two things is going to happen. There's going to be government subsidies, or there's going to be fees. And either way, it trickles into the government economy, and then you know, that's where the control comes in. So just stuff I was thinking about. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, you know, like the video, share it. There's a lot of people that may or may not realize everything that I said in the video, so it's worth sharing to people who are thinking about getting a flock, people who are not thinking about getting a flock, people that are wondering why their neighbors are getting chickens, things like that. But yeah, give it a subscribe, and I'll do more on chickens, like how to keep them alive, how to raise them right, and get the most out of them, and what to do with them if you can't keep them anymore. So thanks all. We'll talk to you soon. And you know, right now, for the last 5 to 10 years, the homesteading movement in this country alone has been massive. Massive. People buying up little pieces of parcels of land, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 acres, 100 acres, and start a little homestead on it, which I think, personally, is fantastic. To that point, there's not a lot of regulations on homesteaders and backyard farming and small farms. There's some. There's not a ton. And we've already talked about it. Regulation equals government economy equals fees. All sorts of stuff. We all know what it means. So put that little piece of the pie in there too, the homesteading side. More people are homesteading today than are starting small farms. Absolutely, hands down, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. So what happens to the homesteaders?